Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. David, it's been a summer.
It has. It's been a long summer, it seems. I've been ready for football since about, April.
Yeah, I would say so. Oh, man, it's Friday. Oh, it's almost here.
I can't wait. I mean, I honestly, football is kind of my thing. I love football. I know it's a basketball area, but man, football just gets me going. And as soon as you start hearing about fall practice, 1st of August, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, and this past Friday was a jamboree time.
Mm-hmm.
Got to see some good looks from a lot of teams around the area. And is there any team that's sticking out to you, just like off the cuff, like that you've got like in your front runner?
Jackson. I mean, they're the alpha, and they've been the alpha for a while. They're going to continue to be that alpha, and they look really good this year. They've got a lot back. They've got an offensive line that I think any team would dream to have. And then, of course, you've got your, Jalen Hampton, who's back as your running back. Drew Parsons is your quarterback. You've got weapons everywhere, and they're just good every year. And I think they are heads and tails above anybody else we're going to see this year.
And you think, so generalized improvements, what do you think they've done differently this year than they did last year?
Honestly, they were young last year. So I think just getting a year older, a year stronger, just getting a year more in the system. They've got a lineman going to Iowa State. They've got another lineman who's getting some D1 looks, who's a junior. I mean, they are loaded. And they've got a quarterback who's, I believe, a 3-year starter, and Jalen Hampton. He's been starting since a freshman. He's only a junior. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that are really, really good. And obviously they dominated the area last year. They've dominated the area for years, and I don't see that stopping this year. But they've got a tough schedule to start. But I think even if last year they kind of struggled early on, and we're like, okay, well, maybe Cape Central's this. Even if Jackson gets blown out in their first 3 games this year, they're still my top team in this area because I think they're that good.
No, I feel like it's hard to count Jackson out in any sense. I mean, we kind of figured, like you said, last year, that Cape Central game, we kind of figured that was going to be a closer knit game than it was.
Right.
What do you think? So just judging off of like difference between this year and last year, that first game against Cardinal Ritter did not go Jackson's way at all. Do you think that's going to change this year?
Maybe not. I mean, I don't think it will be as big of a blowout. It didn't surprise me. Cardinal Ritter won that game last year. I think it was more of a surprise at the score. And so I think the game will be closer this year. Would it shock me if Jackson won that game? No. Because, you never know what Cardinal Ritter is going to have each year.
It's at the Pit this year.
Right, and it's at the Pit, and that's a big thing, too. Jackson plays very well there. That's just if you've never been to the Pit, that's just an outstanding atmosphere. We were actually talking about that before we even came on. It's just fun to watch a football game there. But, man, it's would it shock me if they lose a game? No. Would it shock me if they win the game? No. But I don't think it's going to be a huge blowout like last year.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, obviously, we know the scores, things like that, where Jackson's at, kind of in the front runner of just like teams in Southeast Missouri. But if you've never been to their location, like seen their field, seen their school, all that's a football school, and it could be a college program if it wanted to.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, honestly, I've been to a lot of SEMO games. I enjoy going to the Jackson home game more than I do a SEMO game. And that's your local college. I mean, and it's definitely the best high school atmosphere of anyone around here. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And honestly, if you've never been, go check it out because it's worth it. It's worth going and experiencing it. And it's just a fun place to be around on a Friday night.
So any smaller schools sticking out to you so far?
No. What sticks out to me is like last year we came in here and we had Cape Central with a lot of seniors back and they were, they looked really good. Dexter, the same way. They had a lot of people back. Crothersville, a lot of people back. This year, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unanswered questions with all these other teams, and I expect Cape Central to be good again. I think they're going to be, obviously, they've got some players back. Sean Boyd is one of them. I mean, he's probably one of the best running backs back in the area. So, but they have a lot of unanswered questions. They've got a lot of spaces, that they've got to fill. Dexter, the same way. I think they're going to be. I don't think that they're going to be as down as some people think they are, but because they've got some people back, Devin Turnbow, they've got some really good linebackers back. But are they what they were last year? No. In Crothersville, same way. They've got Sammy Bryant back, who's really good. Maybe he may be the best running back. I think he led the area in rushing last year. But at the same time, they've got a lot of unanswered questions. So I think the theme this year is just who answers those questions, and who's all these coaches want you to drink their Kool-Aid this year about, oh yeah, we're good, because you're not going to say you're not good, but of course they want you to believe that they're good and they're improved, and so it's just going to be kind of the theme this year of what Kool-Aid do you drink, and what Kool-Aid tastes good and what doesn't.
Absolutely. And seeing what we had last year, teams we had, who do you think is making those strides and improvements right now?
I do think that Hayti is one of those teams that's in the small schools that's making a lot of. They've got a lot back.
They're bringing their entire offense.
Yeah,
back.
Basically their entire offense. I think 8 starters on offense back. J.C. Ford's back at quarterback. You've got Jeremy Alexander back at wide receiver. Javante Payne back at wide receiver. I'm like, you've got a lot of weapons there, and they were just a few injuries away from being really, really good last year. They had some injuries that kind of caught up with them at the end of the year. So I expect them to be a lot better this year.
Yeah, you want to talk about improvements, like even just coming from, the year prior to last year. I think their average point total per game was maybe 14. They bumped that up to around 26. So if they're just improving off of that, who knows where that's going to end up?
Yeah, Coach Dominic Robinson. I mean, he's only 2 wins away from being their all-time career coaching wins leader. I mean, so I expect him to get that this year by game 3 or 4. I mean, I expect him to get that quick, and because I think this team is going to be really good. I think they can make some noise in Class 1. St. Vincent lost a lot in Class 1, and all those schools really lost a lot. So I think Hayti could make a pretty good run here, and they're mostly a lot of juniors on this team. So I think it's a team that could be good for a couple of years.
And so I think the biggest kind of where we're at headline wise is we talk about parity all the time on the show. The parity of how many coaches are going into their sophomore year, how many good teams are lost 8-10 seniors, things like that. But also, we got another coaching carousel in a way. I think 3 more teams I can pick out that have new head coaches going into the season. Do you think that's going to, set that divide back across the board?
I don't know if it sets it back. I'm very interested in Charleston. I think Charleston could be good. I mean, their offensive line is huge. They've got 2 guys over 300 pounds, another one at 285. I mean, that's a Class 1 school. I mean, you don't see that in Class 4, and they've got athletes all over the field that can make plays. What we don't know is their new coach situation. I mean, he comes in. Travis Adams, I believe is his name. He comes in from West Memphis, and we don't know. I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. I don't know, but man, he's got some weapons to deal with. And if he's a good coach that Charleston thinks he is, they could make some really big noise in Class 1 as well. It could be them and Hayti. But man, it's a lot of new coaches this year. Farmington gets Coach Eckley. And I think that's a monster waiting to happen up there, because we saw what he could do at Jackson. He's done it at Union. He's done it at other schools, and I think maybe not this year, because they've been running the option there for years and years, and he's kind of a more spread it out and throw it. So we'll see what they do this year, but I expect them to have some really good teams here in the future. And then of course Kennett, Coach Wyatt. I'm like, we know what he can do at Kennett. He's done it. And it just may take a year or 2, but he's going to get them bigger and stronger, and he's going to have them on top, because he does it everywhere he goes. And I expect him to have some really good teams down there in Kennett, and maybe not this year, but I expect them to be a lot better this year than what they were last year for sure.
So coming from last year and the coaches that we had to look at just coming in, those who are entering in their sophomore year, who do you think is going to make the most strides and improvements?
Man, I don't know. I mean, there's just a lot of good. I mean, man, any of them really. I think Scott City is kind of the one that kind of jumps out at me, just because they're adding Chaffee. They're adding some really good players from Chaffee, and I think like 4 or 5 all-conference kids from Chaffee are coming over to Scott City. Now, granted, you're moving up. They're probably. I would assume that they're going to move up to Class 3, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right, yeah.
With adding in, I mean, we'll find out on Friday when they release those districts, but I'm assuming they're going to jump up to Class 3. So that's a tougher class to be in. But I think, you've got your quarterback back and your running back back, and then all of a sudden you add all these players from Chaffee that's going to help across the line, which is kind of going to be their weakness this year was the line play. Then you add some line play in from Chaffee. I mean, I think they could be really good, and they're the kind of Coach Bo being up there. I think that's kind of his second year. I think he could kind of really take a big jump this year.
Well, you got to think kind of the storyline that comes with Coach Bo too. Coming into after Coach May left, just the system that he has to work with, everything he's providing. I think he only had maybe a handful of anybody who actually played varsity football at that time.
Right.
So coming into the second year, I mean, Jackson Gloth, we've seen what he can do, especially under pressure as a QB, and then Rustin Underwood, of course, is just a standout running back. Yeah, I think you're right. Just if you get that line bumped up and you have time, you can probably sling it downfield a little bit more too. Yeah,
you can, and Ty Atkins is a really good player from Chaffee who's coming over. I definitely want to mention him. He's a good player. But I think that they're going to have more weapons, and I think just giving him time to throw. He didn't have any time to throw last year. It seemed like every time he was throwing, he was on the run, and he was constantly under pressure. So I think just having some time for him to throw the ball, and I expect them to be pretty good this year. You mentioned sophomore coaches. I mean, Sykeston, Coach May at Sykeston, coming over from Scott City. They think they're going to be better. I'm like, they've lost 25 straight SEMO conference games. I mean, they're dating back to 2018, and that's a lot. I mean, their basketball teams won 27 in a row in the SEMO conference. So it's kind of a,
it's a disparity.
Yeah, a little disparity there. But, I really think Sykeston gets one this year. I really think they get off that snide, and I think they're better. I like Pierce Baker, their quarterback. I think he along with Drew Parsons is one of the, they're the two best quarterbacks in the area, in my opinion. I think he's got some weapons in Keon Atkins and a couple of other guys there. Holcomb, at running back. I think they can, make some plays. But I think defensively is where they're really going to be a lot better. I think they're bigger, stronger. Sam McGill's a really good linebacker. I think that they're going to make some strides defensively. I think they're going to win some games and kind of surprise some people.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the storyline that I've heard about. It's just like, get them into the weight room, bulk them up, and then see what your defense does.
And it'll be the second year with him and Coach Vickery working with that offense as well. And so I really like what I see from them. I like what I hear from them. We'll see. We like, again, all the coaches are trying to get you to drink their Kool-Aid. So we'll see what happens. They've got a tough schedule, but they open up with Crystal City. I expect them to take care of them, and then you kind of just see what happens.
I think the only thing with the Crystal City matchup is that you have to go so far.
Yeah, but I think Crystal City, they've got a new coach. They lost their best player from last year. I think that's a matchup that's really good for Sykeston. I think that's a good way to start the year. You can go up there, you can kind of work through a few things, and then you come back home against what's going to be, I think, just a tough game with Dexter. I think that's going to be just a brawl there. I think that's two teams that have really good defenses, and so we'll see how that goes.
I think my team that has the biggest question mark next to it right now is Portageville. Mm-hmm. I think, new head coach, Aaron Bidewell, Portageville alum, bringing in a coaching staff or existing coaching staff that were all wore Portageville jerseys. So, it's a system that they all know, and it's that hard-nosed football. I just don't know what to expect right now.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. He's been a basketball coach, head basketball coach all of his years, and so he's been an assistant in some football teams. But he's known as basketball, and his dad was known as basketball. So, but I was told once that if you can coach football, you can coach, whatever. And maybe it's just because they were trying to get me to coach soccer. I don't know, but I do believe that. And so, he's got that coaching acumen. And like you said, all those coaches are Portageville alums. They all, bleed blue. And I think that's really good for a program, especially down at Portageville. And so I'm anxious to see what they come. They're going to have a good quarterback, and I believe Max Warren is their quarterback, and he's a really good baseball player. And so I'm anxious to see what he does on the football field.
I want to see if it translates.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. They've got some playmakers there. Hickenbottom, he's got some speed. So I'm anxious to see how that translates. And we'll find out real quick. They played Kennett right off the bat, I believe. So we'll see how that kind of jumps off with Coach Wyatt down there, who's a proven football coach. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes.
Two fresh programs at that point that are kind of finding their place.
Right.
Another team I have to consider is East Prairie too. They lost 10 seniors.
They lost a lot. I think 10 seniors, 6 of those were all conference. I mean, they do return Tavion Ware.
Yeah.
And that's a huge player to return because he's a really, really good player offensively and defensively. I like Coach Penrod. I think that they're going to be depending on a lot of youth this year, though. And I think that's, I don't know how that translates when you only got like 25, 26, 27 kids, and so you don't have a lot of kids out. They're very young. They're going to have to grow up really fast. And so we'll see how that happens. But I like if anybody's going to be able to turn that around or keep that going, I guess, is Coach Penrod. I mean, he's going to have them tough. He's got them in the weight room, gets them stronger. And so, he's going to have them as ready as he can. And it's just how quick do they mature, to playing on Friday nights.
Obviously last year too, the talent that he had to work with, it kind of felt like he got to put the team on autopilot a little bit, just kind of see what they did. Now you're coming in with a very fresh squad. So you're going to have to kind of implement your coaching technique a little bit and kind of see what you can build out of it.
Yeah, the good thing about him being there last year, though, is you had those seniors. Your younger underclassmen could watch those seniors and watch how they went about their business. And your younger kids are going to pay attention to that. Even if they're these freshmen coming up, they were in 8th grade. They saw what was going on with that program and just being around Coach Penrod and stuff. So he's kind of had a year to establish the things that he wants to establish in there, the way the program goes. So and that's a benefit. So these younger guys coming in, they may not win as many games as they want to win this year, but I think it's going to be beneficial for them in the future. I mean, I think the future looks really bright for them. And I'm not saying they can't win a bunch of games this year, but you just kind of come in and you're like, okay, well, this is what he expects, and so you start that right away, and you kind of build with that from freshman on. So I think that's a good thing for them.
Oh yeah, you got to implement a culture, regardless of what that is. You gotta strive to build your younger guys up for sure. How do you feel about New Madrid this year?
New Madrid's going to be better, I think. I mean, they had a lot of young players last year. They're going to be a lot of athletes. There's athletes all over the field. This year, though, I think defensively, every year we talk about New Madrid, we're always kind of talk about their offense. They can put up a lot of points. But I think they've got like 7, 8 starters back on defense. They have a really good linebacking core back. And, Caleb Moore, Malachi Hughes, those are some really good players. They fly to the football. I think that's going to be a benefit for them. They do have a new quarterback, but they have Charlie Rossano back at running back. I think he's going to be a force this year. So I think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. And I expect them to make, kind of some noise in Class 2. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, coming off of last year, I mean, New Madrid is pretty much known for developing athletes. And if they're down a year, they're not going to be down for long. That's
right. I think the last time they had a losing season, they followed that up with like 5 straight winning seasons. And I expect them to have a winning year this year. I really do. I think they're going to be tough for anybody they play. Even Cape Central that first game, because they have athletes all over the field. But I think defensively is really where I'm looking at them. It's just different for them, because normally it's like, okay, they're going to score a lot of points, but they're going to give up a lot of points too. But this year's team is just, it seems like the opposite. Like, we're going to stop you, and then we're going to do what we need to on offense. And they have a new quarterback with Caleb Moore as well. And, so we'll see how that translates. But man, I think that that defense, I think it's going to be flying around. I think it's going to be fun to watch, because there's some kids that can really hit there.
I've been seeing a lot of teams saying that defense is going to be their bread and butter this season. Same thing with next team I want to talk about is Dexter. Dexter's obviously losing. They lost, Nolan Alford, and they lost Jet Grams. That is big loss, I would say.
Yeah, big losses all across. Not just them, but Liga Michael McDonald, I believe, is gone
also
too.
True.
So I'm like, you lost a lot of your playmakers from last year, but they. Speaking of linebackers, they've got some really good linebackers back. You've got Hill back, you've got Miller back, and Horoyevich, I think is how you say it. I mean, those are 3 really good linebackers that you have back, and some good pieces to start with on defense. So I think they're going to be a lot like New Madrid. I think you're going to lean on your defense, and then your offense. We'll see what comes. I mean, you got Houston Neely at the back of that defense, who had like 9 interceptions last year. Devin Turnbow had like 5 or 6 interceptions last year. He's back. So I mean, it's a tough defense. They're going to be tough to score on. My question with Dexter is line play, because they lost their, pretty much their entire offensive and defensive line.
Right.
So that's going to be my biggest question is the line play and the quarterback. But if they can figure that out, they could be really good again this year because, they've got some good players back. And so I think they're going to be better than what some people think.
And, for quarterback play, Will Geatley's had time to, kind of watch and observe. And now it's proving ground for him. But I think as far as athletic talent, I don't think there's any question that he can probably play Dexter's game.
Absolutely. And if Dexter continues what they've been running in the past, they kind of run, a lot of runs. So you're not having to throw the ball down the field all the time. And so I think that bodes well into kind of, getting him into that varsity, those Friday nights, and kind of easing him into that situation when you've got guys like Turnbow who can run the ball and are so explosive. Because I expect big things out of Turnbow this year. I think the big thing for him is stay healthy. I think, he's kind of got dinged up a little bit in football season last year, got dinged up, in basketball season. Right. You got to stay healthy if you're him, but that's every team, all the teams this year, all your better players, you got to stay healthy.
On a team of 30 people, losing a couple guys, that can
be a huge thing. And so, yeah, health is a big thing and will go a long way to what teams have success and what teams don't. But at the same time, Dexter, like I said, they've got some playmakers that's going to help Geatley out. And, Wernick is another one that I think can make some big plays for them. So I think, they're going to have, I think Geatley's going into a nice situation here.
So let's talk about the upcoming games coming up this Friday. Oh, man, Friday.
It's already here.
So first up on the listing, I've got Porterville and Kennett.
And that's a tough one because that's for me, that's a toss-up game. Porterville, new coach, Kennett, new coach coming off an 0-10 season. I think I like Kennett in this game. Just because it's at Kennett. That's my defining thing, but because I think it could go either way. But man, I'm anxious to see both of these teams and see how much they've improved from last year.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't get to see it myself. Porterville played against Dexter at their Jamboree, and they played that a 0-0 game.
Yeah. And so, is that a referendum on Dexter? Is that a referendum on Porterville, or is it both? You don't know at this point. I don't know. I think Porterville has the ability to be good. But I also think Kennett, they've got some playmakers with Ty Jones and they had some younger guys. Fonda's a good running back. Hollywood's a good running back. That
great football name.
Yeah. Yeah. I think both of those guys can really put some things together. So, I think people are going to be surprised. I think Kennett's going to win some games this year. And I think people are going to be surprised. Wyatt is known for turnaround football programs. He did it at Malden. He did it at Kennett. And he did it at West Plains. He can coach. I'm gonna lean on him on this one and go with Kennett. But man, again, it could be Portersville. I'm
gonna take Portersville in this one. I just feel like they're a little more proven right now. But that fresh coaching situation, that's an outlier for me. It's just like, where's this gonna go? But if they got a strong defense, I don't know.
It's going to be a good start for one of these two programs. Just kind of to build on.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up on the listing, we got Malden at Dexter.
I think this one is Dexter. I think Malden. We haven't talked about them, but Malden's got a lot of good players back, a lot of explosive players back. But I think they're still trying to build that program. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. But I think Dexter a little more established. I think, they can lean on some of their seniors that did play last year. That, again, Dexter's going to have a good defense. So I think Dexter wins this game. I don't think it's, I don't know if it's going to be a 40, 50 point game that it's been in the, last few years. But at the same time, I think that, Dexter is kind of the, my favorite here in this one.
I would say so. You want to talk about a clash of cultures right now. You have Dexter, who's coming off of a very successful season. So the expectation to win is going to be there. And Malden, who is now building this kind of backing of their culture. Mm-hmm. One win in 3 years, that's a sore thumb for a lot of people. But, when you just get that one win and you're trying to build off of that, then it becomes, okay, can we rally behind that? I favor Dexter in this matchup. I think that's a pretty solid pick. But at the same time, I would like to see Malden improve this year, and I think they will.
I do too. The Dobbins is going to be. He's explosive. We saw that last year. They can explode at any point in time and just have a big blow off for an 80-yard touchdown or something. They have that ability. My question is, can they stop somebody?
Yeah.
The defensively, can you get in there and really kind of hold the other team down? And that remains to be seen. And until we see that, I think that we are going to pick a Dexter in those type of situations. But again, I think Malden's going to be better this year than they were last year, and just keep building up that program.
Yeah, shootout games are some of the most fun to watch, but defenses pulling an offense off the board, I mean, that's how you win a game.
Yeah, when you can stop somebody, that's a huge thing.
Next up, I've got Kelly at Charleston.
Well, Kelly, we haven't talked about Kelly. Kelly's another young team. There are not a lot of people out there kind of rebuilding there a little bit, but they think that they're going to be okay this year. They've got some good young running backs coming in there. They've got a really good offensive line back for them to run behind. That's kind of where their experience lies. I expect Kelly to have a good year, but again, I'm kind of a little bullish on Charleston, which I don't know if I should be after basketball season last year, but I'm gonna still stand behind some Charleston here, and I think they're going to be good. They've got a really good offensive line. They've got a lot of explosive players at the running back position. They've got a good quarterback in Chase Kirby, who's back for his junior year. So I think. As you come into the first game of the year, I think Charleston's probably, even with the new coaching staff, probably a little bit ahead of where Kelly is.
Yeah, I mean, even from last year, we kind of weren't expecting Charleston to be as good as they were. So at this moment, I can't take Charleston out of that equation either. Kelly, for me, like you said, is more of an unknown. I'm just not really sure. This one could go either way. I'm also going to take Charleston, though.
Yeah, and again, I think Charleston could be really good, but we're just going to have to wait and see.
And then East Prairie at Scott City.
I'm going to take Scott City in this one just because of what we talked about earlier. The returners that they have, you add those with Chaffee, and I know some people are like, oh, the two rivals are coming together. That may be a problem. I don't think so. I think those two schools, they know each other. They're so close. I think they know each other really well. I think it's a good thing for the Scott City program, and I think that they're going to be a pretty good football program this year. So I like Scott City over the youth of East Prairie. But this is a chance for East Prairie to come in with probably not a lot of expectation and make some noise.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure 100% on this, but I think 5 players from Chaffee are kind of front running in that starting lineup.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And I think there's one senior, I think, on offensive line.
Yeah, I think that may be right. So
as far as I've heard, the blend between Chaffee and Scott City is going very well. I don't think there's any kind of friction there that's causing the team to be in any discord at all. So, I would also take Scott City. What they're bringing back and what they have right now, I think it's going to kind of be that first punch in the mouth to East Prairie, where they're going to have to okay, this is where you start growing up.
And, Scott City is a very physical football team anyway, and you come out there and East Prairie is very physical. So it's going to be interesting to see how East Prairie with that youth, takes that physicality from Scott City. So we'll see how they take that first punch in the mouth and see how they react.
And next up, we've got Cape Central at New Madrid.
I like Cape Central in this one, even though, I talked New Madrid up. Cape Central, I think, still – Coach Gibbs, I think he's going to have them ready to go. They were clearly better than New Madrid last year in that game. Now, granted, Cape Central lost a lot, but they do return some good players as well. And Cape Central is the bigger school. I like Cape Central in this game. I think New Madrid keeps it close for a while before Cape Central pulls away late. But I think this is kind of going to be a kind of a defining game, I think, for New Madrid, because I think after this game, New Madrid can go on a little run here and win some games. And if they can just stay healthy in this game, and kind of iron some things out, I think that's going to be big for them. But I like Cape Central to win this game. Yeah,
I think so too. I think Cape Central this year is going to occupy that 2 slot in my mind.
Yeah.
Just on and the difference between classes and size and everything like that. That disparity is just kind of always going to be there. But, Cape Central, I feel like they're just right behind Jackson at this point.
Yeah, I do too.
And then next up, I've got Sykeston at Crystal City.
I like Sykeston in this game. Like I said, Crystal City, their new coach, Their best player graduated from last year. And he kind of made a lot of things happen for them in that first game against Sykeston last year to keep it close. I really like Sykeston. I think this is kind of a springboard for Sykeston. If, they come out, they play well, they can kind of, have their way with Crystal City. I think that's going to bode well for them coming into week 2 against Dexter. So I really like Sykeston in this game. I think they're going to put up some good numbers.
Yeah, with how much Kool-Aid Sykeston's putting out, drink it and drink it fast.
Yeah.
You want to make that winning culture at the very start of the season. Take it from this team. I'm going to take Sykeston, and then that springboards you into success. I mean, that'll be awesome. But that week 2, that's tough.
Yeah, I think Sykeston needs to go up there and win this game and win it pretty handily.
Yeah,
I think
you want it decisive,
right? Because last year the game against Crystal City, which they thought they would win kind of handily, I knew a couple of people like, why are we even playing these guys? And then you all of a sudden you have a really close game that kind of goes down to the wire, and it's like, wait, what's going on here? Maybe we're not as good as we thought we were. And I think if you go up there and you just take care of business, you run it up early, then I think that's a good mindset for you to coming into week 2.
Absolutely. Moving on, Hayti at Lighthouse Senior High.
I don't know where Lighthouse Senior High is. I know it's a homeschool. I don't know anything about them, but I feel bad for them because I think Hayti is just going to put a bunch of points on them. I think, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know who plays for Lighthouse. I mean, I don't know. They could be a bunch of old men with some, I don't know, who work at the Lighthouse. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that Hayti is going to have the athletic edge in this one. Hayti, like we said, they've got a lot back on offense, pretty much their entire offense. I like them big in this one.
I want to see Hayti's demonstration of speed.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something they excelled at last year, and I think this year it's just going to be a problem for everybody in the area. And then, like you said, just bring back your entire offense with a little more seasoning.
Yeah, come out and make a statement early and let people know, hey, we are for real this year. We're a year older. Come out and make a statement. I think that's what Hayti is going to do there.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be on everybody's radar by the end of the season.
Absolutely.
Moving on, Crothersville at St. Pius.
I like Crothersville in this one. I know that they lost a lot from last year, but I do think they've got a lot back. Sammy Bryant is a outstanding running back. They've got a great coaching staff there that's really kind of built this program back up. I really like this team. I really do. I think that they're going to, I do know, losing Alexander, losing Oscar Dominguez, those are 2 huge losses. Lost some other seniors as well, but they returned some good players on defense. I really like this team. I think they go up to St. Pius and take care of them. And I think they have a really good year. I'm looking at them, with just maybe 1 or 2 losses on their schedule.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm really thinking they're going to have a good year.
I think for Crothersville, there's not a lot of looking back at your previous season and just kind of looking forward. I want to see what Coach G adds to this season. And I don't know about 1 to 2 losses, but
the beauty of their schedule is like they play Valley, but Valley lost everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of the teams on their schedule lost everything.
Yeah.
So they come in and they didn't lose everything. They lost a lot, but they didn't lose everything. So I think they kind of have that really good, and they have that really good, they've got a lot of athletic ability. They've got that good mix of offense and defense. I think I think they play well both ways. So I just really like this team. It's another team I'm kind of bullish on.
They were a threat team last year, but that's 8 players that you've lost.
Yeah, it is.
So it's a lot. I don't know. I'll take Crothersville too. I think that's a solid pick. And, I just want to see where they go throughout the season. And then the game that's going to be listed on A-Corp Sports, I'm excited about this one, Cardinal Ritter at Jackson.
I'm going to take Cardinal Ritter just because of what happened last year. Yeah. And Cardinal Ritter's going to have, speaking of athletes all over the field, that's just what Cardinal Ritter does. They're going to have athletes everywhere. They're going to have D1 guys, guys that are getting D1 looks. And
guys that go to Alabama, and then they play in the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have, players that are just kind of not, where Jackson has 1 or 2 of those guys, Cardinal Ritter's going to have 6 or 7 of those guys.
Sure.
And so I'm going to take Cardinal Ritter. Again, though, it would not shock me if Jackson pulls a win here. I don't think it's going to be a turbo clock situation. I think Jackson's going to, I think it's going to be a tough game. Jackson's physicality is something that I don't think Cardinal Ritter is probably expecting. But at the same time, Cardinal Ritter has those athletes that it's hard to simulate in practice for Jackson.
Right. For Jackson, I mean, this is the game that they circle every year. And it's right at the start. So, I mean, does it set that tone for the rest of the program at that point if you come out of this game with a loss? Or do you think that, I don't think it's expected, but do you think, like, we practice for this one? Or do you think they practice for the rest of the season?
I think even if you lose this game, it doesn't impact the rest of your season. We looked at that last year and we're like, oh, well, they lost this game. Here we go. Then they lost, then they won a game. Then they lost again to Edwardsville, Which
I feel like those were outlier games, though, because Jackson doesn't get to play that kind of competition in this area. They always have to go somewhere to do that.
Right. But it didn't impact them the rest of the year. And so I don't think I think that gets them ready for the rest of the year. And I think then they just, beat the crap out of everybody the rest of the year because they play these good games. I'm like, they start off with, Cardinal Ritter, then they play a really good Ballard County team or Ballard out of Louisville. Then you come back against Edwardsville again. I mean, those are 3 tough teams off the bat. You go 0-3, I don't think that enters into their mindset. I really don't. I think that's even if you go 0-3 there, I think that just, gets them more motivated just to beat the other teams that they have left on their schedule that are, around here. So they dominate around here. I don't think that's going to change. And I think these games are going to get them ready for their district and then into the playoffs.
All right. Any games that I'm missing off of upcoming games?
No, not really. The Saxony Lutherans, they're going to get their varsity season versus varsity program kicked off, and that's an interesting team in my opinion. I think they're going to win 4, 5, 6 games this year.
Oh, really?
They don't have a super tough schedule, but a lot. I think they're their first 4 games. I think the teams that they have combined for 1 win last year on them. So it's a great way to start off if you're Saxony, and I think that's a sleeping giant. I think that's going to be a big problem for some teams around here in the next couple of years. You've got a really good quarterback apparently in Kai McDowell, who's the son of Jeremy McDowell, who was the offensive coordinator for SEMO, who left there to go coach his kid, which is kind of cool. And I remember Jeremy McDowell when he was in high school, playing for North County and just dominating, and one of the best high school quarterbacks I've ever seen. So. I think this Saxony team, I think they win this game. I think they're going to win some games this year, and I think that's a program that's going to be on the rise and quickly.
Do you think it's going to be a program that kind of sets that niche between Cape Central and Jackson?
I do. I really do. I think it's going to be a team that rises quickly. I think it's going to be a team that has a lot of success. I've always said that if Notre Dame ever had picked up football, I think they could have been a juggernaut in the area, but they just never have. They kind of focus on soccer and just kind of stay away from football. I think Saxony's kind of going to pick up that flag and kind of run with it, and I think they're going to be really, really good here in a short amount of time. And I think that's a program. I think that's going to be kind of a really good program in this area for a long time to come.
Yeah, because you got to think about in the next coming years, especially as kids playing on Saxony's football team are there to play football because they've got tons of options for other schools they want to go to. But that's a private school that's offering a football program. You're going to be there because you want to play.
Right. And you're drawing some kids from Jackson. Jackson has proven that they have got the hold of the football talent in the area. And, if you just get some of those kids, coming out for your team and kind of poach them from Jackson, I think that's going to help them. And who knows, it may bring Jackson down just a little bit about some of the other teams in the area, which they would like.
Interesting to think about.
But yeah, so I think that's something that, you're going to have to look at is that area that they're in. You go just up the road a little bit to St. Genevieve, and St. Genevieve, they've always got a good team in Valley, and they've always, pretty much their public school is always a good team. And they remind me a lot of Jackson. They just always have really good football program, football players up in that area. And I think that's going to be the same way with the Saxony Jackson area.
Yeah, I think for Saxony right now, you want to make yourself look good. You want to make yourself look like a very fun place to go. And with an easier schedule, that might be reality at this point. Mm-hmm.
And you have Donovan coming back this year with a varsity program. We'll see how that pans out. Coach Hampton over there, he's a Sykeston native, was down at Portersville with Coach Penrod for a while. He's got that program. We'll see how I think they play Piggott, I think is who they play. I don't know much about that. I would assume Piggott would win that game as Donovan's kind of trying to build this back up. But at the same time, Donovan, starting their program again. I want to see them to succeed, have some success, because their first reboot of this program did not go well.
Sure.
It just seemed like I think 2 wins maybe was the most that they had in a season. So I think that they need some success. I think Coach Hampton's a guy that can get it out of them there. You just got to get some buy-in, I think, from the community, and I think they're starting to get that over there. So we'll see how that pans out. But I want to see some success out of them. I wish they would kind of schedule kind of the way Saxony has, to try to get that, some wins possibly early, to kind of, build some momentum behind the program.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. For Donovan, I also want to see them succeed. I want more, football teams in the area. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And, with Chaffee going down to, I don't know what your opinion of is Chaffee going down to Scott City. We haven't really talked about it, but for me, I think there's a need for like some 8-man football around here.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because, to me, I'd like to see more small towns, especially that don't have the option to do 11-man football, to run 8-man football. At least it brings the sport to these towns as an option for these kids.
Right. And the fact is, I think Chaffee might have done it, but if there was just somebody around here for them to play, there's a lot of 8-man teams up in northern Missouri, but I think you need to get some buy-in from some schools down here. And it's expensive to start a program. So like if a Gideon or a Holcomb or somebody wanted like that wanted to start a program, that's some startup money that you're going to have to put in, and a lot of money that these schools don't have. So I think that's kind of where it kind of comes in. You go, because I could see like a South Pemiscot, starting to, they used to have football, back in the 70s. I could see them coming up with a 8-man program and being pretty good, but the cost of it is not worth is not worth it, I think. And so, but I think if you could ever get some buy-in with that, and maybe kind of figure out some way to get some of these other schools where you could, get some 8-man programs, I think you could have a really good 8-man, kind of eight-man schools down around this area. But I think it's just getting that initial buy-in and stuff is where you need to start.
Right. And we always talk about how this area is a basketball area, and that's more out of somewhat necessity, somewhat convenience. It's just like, well, everybody can have a basketball court. Football's expensive.
Yeah,
it is. It is so expensive for jerseys, for fields, for turf fields.
Yeah, no kidding.
For press boxes, everything like that. It is an inordinate a very big cost, essentially. And I love football. I think it's my favorite sport. I love watching it, everything like that. But I can see why these schools just don't have the means to do it.
Right, and I wish they did, but we don't exactly live in a rich area of the state or of the country, either, and that's that kind of hurts. But I would love to see figure something out. I don't know if it's partnerships between schools and then kind of pooling your money or something like that. But I think we could have some good. Meeting of the minds, I think, for some of these schools that would like to get involved with it. I was kind of surprised when Chaffee, went with Scott City and they didn't incorporate with any other schools. But then from what I was told, they went and asked other schools to kind of jump in with them, and those schools weren't interested. So, maybe the interest isn't there. Maybe we just have the interest and these other schools don't have that interest. But, I would like to see some schools kind of sit down and say, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? And maybe kind of get, some 8-man teams around here. Obviously, it wouldn't be as expensive as it would be to have the teams that you have, an 11-man program. But at the same time, it would be expensive. You got the equipment, you got the fields, you got a lot of things to consider with that. And I do realize that expense is not minor. So, but man, it would sure would be nice.
Yeah, I think overall, having more programs means more competition, and I think that just makes the sport better for everybody in the area.
I agree.
All right, Friday's coming up. Very excited to see what happens. Very excited to get to know these teams all over again. I think that's one of the biggest things is we can do some analysis in preseason, but the ability to watch these games, see how they develop, things like that, and it's fresh every year. It feels like that's what I'm most excited about. Yeah,
I'm really excited for Friday night. This. Walking into the stadiums and just get the smell of Friday night football, I love it. I can't wait until it kicks off. And man, I'm just again, like you said, it's nice to see how these teams, what we think now. When we come back in 10 weeks, we'll see what we think in 10 weeks. How were we right? Were we wrong? And we'll be right on some, we'll be wrong on some. But that's going to be that's the fun of it.
All right, David, any final thoughts?
Nope, just great to be back.
All right, I think so too. All right, this has been the SEMO Sports Zone. We'll catch you next time.